My name's Kimbell, and my brother owns and runs the Gamelan here in Reading.
And what are you doing in daily life?
I work for the National Archives in the UK. I'm head of business development there, so I run our licensing programme. So it's very different to the musical career. So having something musical to do every week is a really good sort of release and relaxation. It's lovely.
When did you hear gamelan for the first time?
When I went to Indonesia to visit my brother when he was living out there 20 years ago. So that was our first exposure, and we saw wayang kulit, and we went to Jogja to the palace and heard the gamelan there, and we did a bit of playing when he was in Oxford, but it's only now that we've settled here that there's been a community group that's formed and that's become a regular fixture for us.
So you started playing gamelan in Cambridge?
Oxford.
Oxford?
Yeah.
In Oxford?
Yeah.
And then, so you moved at the same time to Reading?
I moved here in about 1990, and we've been playing here, based in Twyford and then here in Reading for the last 5 years. So.
How did team form the group?
Well, because his wife's Indonesian, there's an Indonesian community called Kampung Reading that gets together for social events. So there were a lot of people there who were already sort of interested in joining in, but no trained musicians. And he sort of put the word around that community and that internet forum, really, and said if anyone's interested in forming a group. And there've been a group of about 8 to 10 of us who've stayed with it all the way around. And people have come and tried and had a go, and it's either worked or not worked. So the sort of the core of the group's been stable now for about 5 years, and we're getting fairly good with it now. Within the amount of time we can give it, because we meet on a Friday night, we don't have that long to play.
How do you feel when you're playing gamelan together with other people?
If it's going well, it's very relaxing, and it's a real high when you get a pattern that's working well and you feel that you're in the flow of it and you stop concentrating on the details and thinking each little unit of the melody by itself, and you can actually feel the shapes in it. But that, for a Western musician, that takes a long time to come, because we're so used to having written music to follow and repeats and all this, and it takes a long time to let go of that and just feel when a pattern wants to move and go with it. So it's a very different experience to Western music, and I do a lot of Western music as well.
So it's different in playing. How do they play in Western music?
Well, every note is written, and you do exactly what the composer wants, and if you deviate, you're wrong, you stop, you go back, you do it again. Whereas with gamelan, especially in a transition passage, you feel one section begin to move in response to a signal, and the different instruments pick up at different times. It feels more organic. It's more a joint decision when things happen, rather than being very rigid and set. I mean, you can be emotional in Western music, obviously, but you've rehearsed when to be emotional, whereas with Indonesian music, somehow you sort of suddenly realise you've created a mood, and you can let it grow and develop, and that's a lovely feeling.
How does gamelan affect your daily life?
It's about community as much as anything else, because it's a group of friends who meet every week, and this is something we're all quite loyal to. During Ramadan, there's a period when we tend to stop a bit, but it gives us a shape and a pattern and a cycle, and if you don't come to gamelan any week, you miss it, because you're catching up with people every week, and people you don't see in any other context. They're the gamelan group, so that's a really valuable extra dimension to having, sort of friends who you just socialise with, or your work colleagues.
Does it affect your work at all?
Probably not. I don't think so. I'd like to think that I'm, mellow and relaxed about it, but I've got a fairly stressy job, so gamelan's a contrast to that rather than something that plays a role in the work as well.
How do you think people around, or people in the UK, accept gamelan?
It's growing in awareness a lot. When I first started playing, you'd say, I'm going to play gamelan, and people would look completely blank, have no idea what you're talking about, and you explain it's an Eastern ensemble of percussion instruments, and no, nothing. But there's been a lot more exposure, and we've done big events on the South Bank where you see hundreds and hundreds of people who are experiencing it for the first time and sort of stopping, because it's such a different sound world. It's a new dimension for people to listen to.
Would you encourage people to play gamelan?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes, it's very simple to start with, and then it can be as complex and involving as you like. You find your own level, and even within the group, even if you're playing a complicated piece and you're a newcomer, you know, there are simple parts that you can play and really join in. And some of the work that my brother's done with so special needs children and disabled children, you know, when you see them, and all they're doing is hitting a drum, but they're part of this big magical sound, and they're an important part of it, and you can see that pride and involvement. So there's lots of different, it's a very, very welcoming, very inclusive sort of music that whatever your ability, there's something for you to do.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.